Welcome to Happy Hour Conversations with Tamekia. Be sure to follow us on IG, Facebook, Pinterest, and YouTube at Happy Hour Conversations with Tamekia, where I bring voices, stories, and laughter to the mic to simply help normalize hard conversations with love, cheer you on as you give yourself permission to live and redefine self as you join and engage in our sister friend tribe. We encourage our community to focus on areas of growth, becoming better versions of self each day, and exercising in faith over fear. Come on and join our sister friend tribe where we just have a good old time and laugh and share our authentic stories and have good conversation. Go ahead and grab your favorite drink and chime in. Before we jump into the episode, let me share this week's affirmation. My mom, she used to say, "The tongue is a powerful thing, Tamekia. Be mindful of your words." So this week's affirmation, words, words, words. Be mindful of the words that you speak into the universe and over yourself, over your children, and the people you love. We can unconsciously create the narrative and wonder why certain behaviors or outcomes of life are happening. They're happening because you spoke it into existence. Let's jump into the episode. All right, welcome to Happy Hour Conversations with Tamekia. I am your girl, Tamekia, and I'm excited to be here today with my realtor of 5 years, Stevena Clay. So, Stevena, can you tell us who you are, what you do, how you got in the business? Give us 2 to 5 minutes.
For sure. So, as she said, I'm Stevena Clay. I am a realtor here in Columbus, Ohio. I've got my license in 2014, and I primarily work with buyers and sellers. What got me involved in real estate is my dad was a realtor in the 80s, so I was one of those kids that followed my dad around to showings and to open houses, and so I always aspired to be a realtor. But kind of got sidetracked and worked in corporate America. I worked for IT company. I worked for some financial institutions, and then finally, in 2014, I made the decision to go ahead and go to school to get my real estate license. So 10 years later, still here, still helping folks, just looking for opportunities to educate more people and get them into homes, to break generational curses and to just teach people more about home ownership.
So you got to see this at a very young age watching your dad. So you technically are following the footsteps of your dad in this arena?
Yeah, somewhat, yes. Yeah, so my dad, he got his license. He was primarily an investor, but he did help, some buyers, but he took more of the investment route. So at one point, he had about 15 properties, and that's what he did, is just manage those properties. So definitely a second generation realtor.
That is pretty cool. Because I think when I hear you tell the story, I don't know if I can relate to anybody within my circle that has had the opportunity at a young age to watch um investment or somebody be a realtor and or even talk home ownership, right?
Right.
So I think that's pretty cool. How many properties do you have, and when did you buy your first property?
So currently, my husband and I, we have 5 properties. I bought my first property at 24. And at that time, I think the main thing for me is I just wanted to stop renting. I felt like it was a money pit.
Okay, so when you say 24, because that y'all don't know how old she is. Give us the time frame. How was that 10 years ago? 15 years ago?
It was
She don't want to tell y'all her age.
I really don't. However, that's about 20 years ago ish.
Okay.
Yeah. About 20 years ago.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
So
we got here 20 years ago, right?
I was in college at that time. Yep, I was still in
You
college.
bought your first property when you were in college?
I did. I was working at a bank, and I don't know. I just was tired of renting.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I wanted to, be able to make a place my own And I always looked at renting as kind of a temporary thing anyway. So at that age, I felt like I had a solid job. I had, been working there for a few years, and I felt like income was sufficient. And so, yeah, so 24.
So you bought your first property at 24. So since then, how many properties have you purchased? And then do you have a portfolio? Like, do you have several properties now? Or how do you manage as it relates to real estate?
So, yeah, actually, the first property that I bought is actually a rental property now. So when we moved out, we rented it, and it's been renting ever since. So it's been rented out for since 2013 that it's been renting. And then within the last few years, we've acquired 3 properties, and then the property we live in. So we have 4 rental properties, and then the property we live in. So that's a total of 5. And we're just looking to continue to grow our portfolio and do partnerships to, buy multi-unit properties and be able to take it to the next level.
So are all the properties here in Ohio?
Yes, all of them are in Ohio. We're open to potentially investing in other areas, but right now, just our comfort level is here. They're all in Ohio. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So being a realtor, what areas do you service? Do you only service in Ohio? Do you partner elsewhere? Like, let's just say if I wanted to move to Houston, put that in the universe. But no, seriously, let's just say if I wanted to move to Texas, right?
Right.
And you and I, we've been working together for quite some time. Would you still be able to assist me if I wanted to move?
Of course, yes. So one thing I did a few years ago was I developed a network map. I already had partnerships pretty much all over the country. But I took a proactive approach, and I basically reached out to different agents, because sometimes in this business, some agents, they start off full-time. Sometimes they may have to go part-time. They move, things change. So I went through, verified all, like a huge network of agents that are full-time agents. Houston is one of them.
Okay.
I actually talked to an agent 2 days ago in Houston, so I'll have to connect you with her.
Okay.
But I have a network with other agents as well, because I try to provide clients or friends that are moving with options. So you can, not just move there and be, Googling and just kind of searching for someone to help you on your own.
Yes.
So I do have a network of professionals all over the country, from, in Texas, Georgia, New York, California, North Carolina, pretty much every single state. And I'm constantly adding to that network. So yes, I'm able to assist people in other states. But in terms of like one-on-one support with me, I primarily work here in Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. Mm-hmm. So I want to cater to first-time home buyers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very important to me because as you bought your first property at 24, I purchased my first property at 40 and had no clue what I was doing. And I wasn't raised in a situation to where we were buying property, right? Mm-hmm. We did a lot of renting, and it wasn't until later in life where I realized that, even my grandma, whose house I had been going to for many years as an itty bitty girl, she was renting. And I wanted to change, I wanted to shake some things up and change the narrative for my family. So at 40, I bought my first property. So I really want to hone in for first-time home buyers and speak to that audience. What are some things that they need to know as a first-time home buyer and or a first-time person who was never even introduced to buying a home and rented primarily all of their life and or was raised in a rental situation?
Well, I think number one, don't allow fear to stop you from gathering the information you need in order to make an informed decision. I think a lot of first-time home buyers, it's like one of those things, you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. And so it's a fear and anxiety around buying a home. And so I always tell first-time home buyers, or just buyers in general, I'm like, you're going to pay somebody's mortgage regardless. So you have to decide, are you going to pay your landlord's mortgage or are you going to pay your own? Mm-hmm. But sometimes I think the mindset is that when you rent, there's a sense of security, something breaks, call the landlord. And I think that's what holds a lot of first-time home buyers back, because they're like, okay, well, if this comes up, can I handle this on my own? Can I get this fixed? Or financially, can I do it? So I think the mindset thing is number one. And then number two is understanding, okay, what is your monthly payment budget? Because I think people really have to understand that before they talk to a lender about getting financed or getting pre-approved for a mortgage loan.
So let's talk about that. How does a person get there? I could tell you what I did. So I'll share what I did, but my method may not necessarily be. I didn't really have a method, to be quite honest with you.
Yes, you did. You definitely had a method.
You think I had a method?
Yes, you were way put together when you reached out to me. You had, yes.
Okay, I don't think I had a method. So what I did was, and maybe it was a method.
You didn't realize it, but you had talked to a lender.
I did, and what I realized, I was like, this is what my rent is, right? At the time, rent was like really cheap. Rent was like at that time, I think I might have been paying $750, right? And what I did is I took what I was paying in rent. I looked at my income and I was like, I'm only willing to go over this. I need my rent. I need my mortgage to either match what I know I can afford rent wise, and or I added like a couple $100, and I'm like, this is the max I'm willing to go to because this is what my income is.
Right.
Now, that was just something I came up with because I'm like, I don't want to be trying to figure out how to pay mortgage plus all the other things that come with it.
Yeah, but you were way ahead in that mindset because a lot of times when I talk to first-time home buyers, they're just like, I don't want to spend over this amount. They're not thinking about the monthly payment. It's more they're thinking about the total like purchase price.
Okay.
Per se. So and then I'm like, okay, depending on the interest rates and things like the taxes, like that may impact. So you were really ahead of the game. And even so much so, like even when we started looking, you was on top of things like going to check out the neighborhood and things like that. Because I think that's a fear too, is buying a house that like having a regret or, with first time home buyers. They don't want to buy a property and feel like they made a bad decision.
Okay. So I would say the only reason I knew about the, to factor in the property taxes is because I took a class, and when I was looking for property and it was like property taxes $1,700 this first 6 months, then another 6, I was like, no, I don't want this. So I guess I kind of did have a method in place, and I think it's important to speak to the audience, especially first time home buyers, when you are looking to buy a home. I would suggest what I did was take what you're paying in rent and factor in what you are willing, how much more you're willing to go.
And don't be afraid to add that, because sometimes, honestly, when you think about it, you really should add it, because rent's going to go up over time, right? And taxes are going up over time. Yes. So sometimes it's unrealistic to say, I don't want to pay what I'm paying in rent. So I think like what you did was very important, because you might have just been waiting for the market to crash and prices to drop, and that has not happened.
No, so. no. Let me tell you, it was definitely. We'll get into how I started even wanting to buy a home, because I think I was really comfortable, and I think that's the other part, right? We get really comfortable in just being in situations and not looking forward, not looking ahead, not planning, and or why? Because let's be honest, even though I do believe in home ownership, there's pros and cons to it, right? Like if and when I do get ready to move, my next move, I may not buy a home, right? Why? Because I may not be like, I'm only gonna be here for a year, or I might buy a home and be like, okay, now I'm ready to bounce. And I think that's the way I like do I feel like I would get something when I get ready to sell? So I think it's more like what the work is, what work you're willing to put into something,
right,
as relates to buying. But I think if you are stationary, I think home ownership is I think it's important.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Definitely. It's definitely more favorable if you're planning to stay in that particular location. If you're just planning to be there for a short period of time, it may not make sense. You know what I mean? You may take a loss if you sell it. You know what I mean? So, not every situation is a good buying opportunity, I'd say. But most of the time, most of my buyers, they've been here for a while. They're not planning to go So I think for most people, it's probably the best option is to buy. I think the question comes to expectations of a home then, because I think a lot of people watch, the shows And so they see all these houses that are completely renovated
Mm-hmm.
and, has all the bells and whistles, and then you send them what's available in their price range, and it's not that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's like,
I
and
remember
so
when you did that, because remember I was only looking to be in a particular area at the time.
mm-hmm.
And I was just like, it's not a lot of options here. And I remember you reaching into me like, open up your zip code area, please.
I'll be like, I'm so sorry. That's all that's available.
I open up your zip code area, and I'm just like, well, no, because I don't want to live nowhere else but here. Like, I was so stuck on living in a particular area. And once you walked me through telling me to open up my zip code area, I can remember things just start flooding in that met my requirements.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, so this was really a thing.
So you were flexible and open to that. And I think that's key too for first time home buyers. Like, okay, you may have a certain area in mind, but maybe be open to the other area. Especially, I mean, it just depends on their situation.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, school districts are important and proximity to work is important. But usually there's some flexibility with that. So I always, sometimes people say, I only want to be in this area. And I'm like, okay, I'll do the search and like one property will pop up.
That was me.
So then I'm like, okay, no, we're going to send you everything surrounding that. You know what I'm saying? And just see potentially if you might be interested. And a lot of times folks are, they end up getting something nearby. It's not exactly, and then also understanding what are must-haves, like, for example, with folks getting older, they're looking for, ranched out homes or homes with first floor master options because, their needs and health reasons why they don't want to, the steps aren't suitable. Well, that inventory is very low. So,
oh, wow.
It's very, very low.
It's low because it's not, it's just low
because it's just low because in general, when you, the types of houses that exist, ranched out homes is just the minority. That's just if you drive a neighborhood, you see, ranches sprinkled in, but there's a majority, 2-story homes, 3-story homes or, bi-level homes, just in general. And so as people age, the inventory is less and less. So there are a lot of new construction like options, but of course that's at a higher price point. So are you spending $400,000? Do you have that? Well, a lot of people don't have that. So
let's talk about that because even to first-time home buyers, if they're looking to should they look to buy? Like, what's the better option for someone? Is it an existing home or to build, or does it just depends on what their situation is?
It depends on their budget, honestly, but generally speaking, for most first-time home buyers, they're starting out at maybe a lower price point with their first home. Maybe they're just getting their career started or whatever. I feel that it can be a challenge. Yeah.
What are some programs for first-time home buyers?
So right now there's a ton of programs, and it keeps changing. But OFA, it's a grant program. I know Park National Bank, they offer there's a $15,000 grant program for first-time home buyers, and you're able to use that to buy down your interest rate and use towards closing costs and things like that. First Commonwealth Bank, they have a program. So as the funds become available, those programs are consistently changing. So what I've been advising first-time home buyers is, connect with their realtor or lender and just kind of continually stay abreast of what's available. Because what's available now may not be available, a month from now or whatever as funds are used. Like last year I had like 3 clients used the program and then they ran out of funds. So then, so that, it's continually changing, but there are a ton of programs. And then depending on if the buyer, they qualify, sometimes you're able to like combine the grant programs.
Oh, like use 2 different programs? Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
So yeah.
So the individual would just really have to do their homework.
Yeah.
Because because they shouldn't assume that the realtor and or lender know about programs. The
lender should definitely know about the program. Some realtors do and some don't. I consider it like my full-time job to kind of continually research what's available.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say reach out to a realtor and or a lender And I always recommend people talk to multiple lenders, at least 2 to 3, just so they can compare, what are the current interest rates with that lender, what are the closing costs, because not all lenders have the same closing costs, that could vary, and then down payment requirements.
Okay. Now you have a team that you work with, right?
I do.
Okay. So you keep a team of people. So if someone was working with you, they wouldn't necessarily, unless they just wanted to and they had their own lender, but you would have someone that you could recommend to them.
Yes, I have a network of lenders that I've had buyers use, successfully have bought homes. I even have a lender for self-employed individuals, so that can be a challenge.
Okay.
The lenders typically ask for your last 2 years of tax filings, recent bank statements, and pay stubs. But for self-employed people, they don't. That could be a challenge. So we have a great lender that he's really good at forecasting, because sometimes like self-employed people don't know, okay, how much do I need to report for his income? Maybe I don't need to write off all my expenses. Maybe I just write off a portion of them so I can, qualify. So he's really good at that. I have some clients he's helping right now to amend taxes and things like that, so they can qualify. Because sometimes it's almost like walking in the dark when you're self-employed.
Okay.
In terms of knowing what do you need in order to qualify for a home.
Okay. So it's important to me that although we're talking to first-time home buyers, it's also important to me that we talk to women who are looking to buy a home, right? Looking to buy a home by themselves. And I think because it's mainly my story, right? I think sometimes we sit back and we're waiting on the perfect moment to do something, or we're waiting on, I'm going to buy with my life partner. And we make all these stories up on why we're waiting on to buy a home, right? So
don't do it, ladies. Don't do it. Oh, that's all I'm going to say. Don't do it. Don't be waiting. Just do it. Because honestly, women are like, they're doing it. We're making more income. We know what we want. And then a lot of times we are, single parents. So, do it for your family. It is something that, you're an asset. When you think about people will buy a car real quick. You know what I mean? But then they'll second guess a home. Well, that home is going to hold its value more than that car. So I'm all for women in home ownership for sure.
Do you have any statistics as it relates to women in home ownership?
Actually, I do. Okay. So I pulled these. So according to LendingTree, single women own 10.95 million homes, while single men own 8.24 million. So put it another way, single women own an average of 12.93, so almost 13% of the owner-occupied homes across 50 states versus 10.22% among single men. So yeah, women are definitely leading in home ownership. And that was a stat pulled from LendingTree as far as just for the entire U.S. I also saw that the Ohio Housing Finance Agency, they report that according to the American Community Survey, 1 year estimate of public use microdata, there's a sample that was pulled and it showed that 5,178 single males were homeowners versus 8,067 single female homeowners, and this is Ohio. So yeah, there's a huge gap between single men home ownership and single women.
Now, you know what I would be interested in as it relates to demographics, to women, Black women, white women, and like breaking it down even further. Yeah, I would be very interested in seeing that. I mean, I'm definitely supportive of single women buying homes, but I would be interested to see the actual breakdown of it.
Okay, well, that's some homework for me to do because I don't know those stats.
Well, just call me later. Call me later.
Okay, I'll get that. I'll try to anyway. So,
as it relates to, because again, we want to hone into first-time home buyers and then women owning homes, right? let's address some of the myths that kind of comes with buying a home that will scare an individual or a woman from buying a home. I'm gonna tell you one that a lot of people kept telling me, right? Which was, you are not gonna be able to fix the things around your house. And
The devil is a liar.
listen, I ain't never done so many do-it-yourself projects ever, and
Yes.
YouTube so much in my life.
Exactly.
But I'm like, wow, the things that people put on you as it relates to, buying a home. And let me be clear, I'm not a laborer person, right? But I think once you have an investment and then you recognize like what are some of the costs that people are charging for some things,
yeah, you
like,
figure out how to do
let
it
me
yourself,
YouTube this.
Exactly. And then just, asking, because we had some work that needed to get done last year. Long story short, I had several contractors look at it, and they all had different solutions and astronomical prices.
Mm-hmm.
Some said, keep looking. And so we were able to find someone that to do the work way more affordable, and it was so much less work than with. So I always say, just get more than one opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go with the first one. Actually, I got a call this morning from one of my friends / clients, and she was asking me about a water heater. They quoted her like $2,000. Well, actually more than that for a water heater, and I'm like, go buy you a water heater, and we can find.
That's like $300 at Home Depot. Listen, I had that same issue. My water heater had went out, and here's the other thing I learned. When you got a home warranty, do not upfront. I didn't know this until I made the mistake, but upfront telling them that you got a home warranty, right?
You told who you had a
the individuals that were coming out to replace my water heater.
Oh,
so they jacked that price up. Okay. They jacked that price up. Yes. So my water heater had went out, and I was just like, well, what am I supposed to do? But I'm thinking I'm cool because I have a warranty, right, that covers that. The other part about warranties is just knowing what your warranty covered. Yeah, the fine print, because it's like you said, like going back to renting, right? Like you thought this is gonna be covered, but when you have a warranty, to like you said, is age. I didn't have the water heater go out in the heat system go out, thinking that it was going to be covered under my warranty. And by the time they tell me what they cover, I'm like, why am I paying y'all monthly? Why am I paying y'all monthly? I can put this money into an account so when something happens, I'm ready for it.
Exactly. That's why I've never bought a home warranty.
I
have a friend that sticks by it, and she gets one every year. But for me, like, I think the deal breaker where I was like, no, I was managing a client's home. I was doing property management. And long story short, she had a home warranty, and they did the whole AC unit needed to be replaced. And they kept having to fix this, little tinker with this, tinker with that, and change this. I mean, they're not going to replace. They do not want to replace it.
They do not.
So at this point, she spent thousands of dollars for the home warranty when she could have just potentially
put that money in the account. That's something. I guess that's the other thing. Like, and again, you don't know until you know. And I do want this to be educational. So learn from experience, right? Put that money into another account. So when something happens, you're able to access it, and then probably have all the money that you need to cover the expense versus paying a warranty, and they're not going to cover what the actual expense is, and you still got to come out the pocket to cover the expense. When the water heater went out, they quoted me a price, and I was like, huh. And I didn't know the warranty, so I called the warranty people. They was like, yeah, we're only going to cover this amount. And I think because they knew that the people was jacking up the price. So I was ended up talking to a good friend of mine, and her husband does a lot of work. He was like, if you don't go to Home Depot and buy you a water heater, and I was like, huh? Went to Home Depot, that water heater was like $300. He came over, put that water heater together. I was like, thank goodness for people just loving me. Yes. But again, I went from about to spend $2,000 to go on the Home Depot and buy one that was like $340.
And that's a good point. So Home Depot, they have preferred contractors too. Example, client, she's selling her home. She got a quote for a door. She called me up. She's like, I got the quote. They quoted me $8,000 for a door. It's a nice door, but it ain't that nice.
Mm-hmm.
So long story short, she found a similar door from Home Depot, and she's going to pay the preferred contractor to do it. And that's like so much. I mean, I think it might be $2,000 for that door.
Wow.
So yeah, so definitely don't, as a first time home buyer, definitely reach out to Home Depot and Lowe's. They do have preferred vendors for work, and that'll save you a lot of money too. That is a good point to make.
Yeah, don't jump onto the first price when
'cause
something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Either figure it out.
Especially as a woman, it's like you really need to get a few opinions, because I think sometimes they do try to take advantage
They do.
of us, unfortunately.
They do. Like when my heater, again, because I just think things just happen over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my heater had went out, and I didn't realize how old the heater was, right? And it was a big thing. It was a huge thing. Like my house, when I tell you, by the grace of all grace, okay? When I tell you has been watching over me, my heater has been running, well, previously was running on what they call a strip system. I didn't know what it was, right? And I later learned what it was. And my bill every month, my bill was probably about the same amount as my mortgage. My bill was expensive. My electric bill was expensive, yeah. But again, not knowing, first time home buyer, and I'm used to apartment living, right? So I just thought it was normal. Until the heater went out, I had 2 people come in and look. And then I actually had got a recommendation for somebody else. It was like, no, you need to deal with this particular HVAC person. And I was like, okay, cool. So he came out. He was like, you are very lucky that you've been living in this house and have not had an electrical fire.
Oh, my goodness.
And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he was like, well, your system isn't running on strip heat. He was like, is your electric bill high? It is. It's about the same as my mortgage almost. And so I didn't have, I guess what they call like the system outside. I guess like the pump and stuff that goes outside. I don't know the technical term, but it's technically I didn't have the correct system to where it was running on emergency only. So the strip heat was where it was literally just running on emergency heat only, to where if I had the correct system outside and if something ever happened outside, then the system was supposed to kick on. Let me tell you, when I sent my information over to my warranty people, this is a whole nother warranty situation. I thought they were going to cover the whole thing. But because that system was about as old as this house, they was like, yeah, we'll give you this amount for it.
Yeah. Home warranties aren't what people think.
And so at that moment, I said, let me cancel this thing.
Right.
Let me cancel this thing. I keep giving y'all money every month, and I'm about to start putting this money into an account because I'm still about to come out the pocket. So that's just a little education 101 for all first-time homebuyers and specifically
yes, definitely
women.
tuck money away for repairs, because it's not about if, it's when. So there's always going to be something to come up, with a house, especially older homes. But even the newer homes, over time, things will come up. Because my pipes bust last winter, and I trust and believe I wasn't expecting for that to happen. And it was something that wasn't identified in the home inspection. So it's like, you just deal with it. But still, overall, property values have come up. So,
it has.
So, I'll take it. It's still a good investment, even with the work that's needed. But I think the mindset thing is the first thing, and then understanding the finances. But yeah, I before looking up these stats, I had no idea that females
was in the lead.
Yes, in terms, versus male all day.
So I'm glad to hear that, because that means we're no longer waiting, right? We're no longer waiting to be with our life partner, and because that's what you grow up with, right? You're thinking, I'm about to have this home with my life partner, and I'm just going to wait. Because I've heard several people say it before, right? That was never my reasoning in not buying a home. It was never conversations I was having about buying a home until, and we'll jump into the story why what even flicked the light bulb off about me buying. But I want to make sure before we jump into anything else, because this is another educational piece for anybody buying a home, but for women specifically, when you're looking for a realtor. I think you may have found this out later that I had a realtor before you. Did you remember me telling you that? I had a realtor before you, and
I try to not remember when people tell me that. I'm like, I'm for you. Let's go. What's the goal? Let's do it. But I do remember you saying that.
Yeah, so I did, and so I want people to know, because again, until my friend, she pulled me aside and was like, "Well, how's it going with blah blah blah?" And I was just like, "Yeah, I don't know if she's doing what I need her to do." Like, I was telling her what was going on, and she was like, asking me like, "Well, why did you?" So let me back up something. We knew each other from a mutual person. Mm-hmm. So what I learned was, because somebody is good people is not equivalent to they can execute in doing what you need them to do, right?
Right.
So I met her through somebody else and loved her energy, loved her vibe, and she was good people. So when this individual asked me, when my friend asked me, I was just like, yeah, she's not doing what I need her to do. So she was like, why did you pick her? Did you interview her? Like, interview her? Was I supposed to? So I want people to know that when you pick a realtor, they're working for you, so you have to interview them. And I didn't know. That was something I was clueless. So I was like, well, no, I didn't interview her. And she
so that explains when we first met
why I interviewed you.
Yeah, she interviewed me like I was job interview.
Yes, ma'am. So she was like, Tamekia, she was like, you got to enter. She was like, you got to think about it. Like, this is a person that you need to have a relationship with, a good relationship with. She was like, because you're about to make a purchase, one of the biggest purchases that you will make in your lifetime. So she was like, you need to make sure that, one, that the person is a good match for you. She's like, it's just like if you were to go on a job interview.
That's so true. And that's,
like, I didn't think about it like that. So I went home, did my homework, got the questions together. You and I connected, and I was like, oh, she's a realtor. I like her energy and vibe. And I reached out to you, and I was like, can we meet for coffee? and did the interview. So I do want people to know, when you are looking for a realtor, make sure there's nothing wrong with interviewing. Come up with 5 to 10 questions. Make sure they're able to meet your needs. And if they are able to meet your needs, then they're the person for you. Yep. If not, then find somebody else.
I agree. Yep. Energy is important for sure.
It is.
Yep. It is. I think that's one reason why, when it comes to, like, you had mentioned, like, helping people in other areas. I think that's one reason why I try to give people, 2 to 3 people. If, say, you're looking to go to Houston, I may give you, 2, because energy is important. Mm-hmm. And not everybody, have the same energy and connect the same way. Mm-hmm. So I think that's very important. So.
And I think the other difference too is asking someone, like, is this just a hobby for you, or is this just your job? True. I mean, or is this your, like, full-time job? Is, like, are you all the way in it? Because I recognize there's a difference from a person who is just doing this as a second gig, or I hate to say hobby, versus somebody who is fully invested. And this is what they do 24 hours, 7 days a week, primarily. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Is. And I think, especially for newer realtors, they think they could do it part-time. It's not really a job you can do part-time. I was unable to do that. No, because, you got to be able to be available, flexible with your time. So, that is very important, having those discussions and understanding, negotiation, too. Because for me, I think communication is key. Because in certain, I don't like to waste people's time. That's for one. And
very true.
I don't like to waste mine. I don't want waste your time either. So for me, it's like understanding, especially when we're looking for homes, and say you see a property you really like, you want to put in an offer. I will have a conversation with the listing agent. I want to understand what's important to the seller. I want to know if there's anything specific I need to know that may impact what we need to offer. And you'd be surprised what you learn in just having those discussions, because maybe something that's important to the seller may not be a good fit for my buyer. So maybe I got a buyer that needs to move right away, but the seller needs a whole month possession after closing. Well, that's not going to work. And then 2, I think it's good to build that rapport with the other agent, because who wants to work with somebody for 30, 45 days that's hard to work with? So I try to, have that discussion, let them know I'm super easy to work with. I'm trying to make this a win for my client, obviously, but a win for your client too. But And that's been pretty successful. But I think when people, realtors are part-time, they may not have the time to put into that. So that's very important for first-time home buyers. Like you said, doing the interviews and making sure that their realtor is open to having those uncomfortable conversations sometimes, especially after inspections.
Yeah. Yes, the inspection. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do remember that.
And I just want to touch on that too. So I strongly recommend that everyone get a home inspection, with the exception of some investors, because some investors, they're okay with buying, something that needs a lot of work, and they may be okay without, doing their own visual thing. But for most other people, I'm like, get your home inspection and, to try to ensure that you're not buying a money pit. But there's always going to be things. It's kind of like going to the doctor. They can do your evaluation, but they may not find everything that's wrong with you, right? Same thing with a house. So just understand that, there are some things that may come up after you buy a house that weren't identified with the inspection. It's happened to me. It's happened to clients. But the main thing is to try to catch the big things as possible. But yeah.
How do we start changing the narrative so people can understand the importance of buying a home ownership? Just start changing that whole narrative of going from renting. Let me make sure I'm clear. I do understand there are situations where you do want to be in a position to rent because there's pros and cons to both. But ultimately, how do we change the narrative to push home ownership?
Education. Just continuous education, and just having these discussions like this, I think, is very important. I think, honestly, I was just telling one of my colleagues, I'm like, we need to do better, realtors, at, educating consistently so people don't make mistakes. A lot of folks don't realize that you need a realtor when you're working with a new construction company, and the risks that are there when you're not represented. They don't understand that the new construction rep that's in the model home, they represent the builder. And so when you go in there unrepresented and you go under contract, if there's an issue with appraisal or the inspection, you have to represent yourself. Most time it's smooth, but there's situations that have come up where it's like you really want someone to be representing you and independently representing you. It's like going to court without an attorney. You know what I mean? You really want that independent representation. So I think changing the narrative is really just like what you're doing now, continuing to talk about it. Folks that we know that have been renting for a long time, continuing to talk to them about the advantage of that. How does that equate year over year? You paying your landlord. How much have you paid your landlord? Have you paid off their house at this point? Getting people to think about that.
But sometimes people get into, and I don't even know what the interest rate is now. I know it's definitely higher than when I purchased, right? But I think there's a lot of pushback on the interest rate. It's like, now, like you said earlier, I'm gonna wait and buy. Wait to buy for what? Because interest is clearly gonna keep going up, right? Like
the prices keep going up.
Prices keep going up.
And that's where, so that's another thing, education. You can refinance if rates go down. I'm just like, get in the door. So like, for example, we bought our home that we live in 2019. And then in 2000, when COVID, rates start dropping. And then, so like the summer we refinanced, which looking back, I'm like, we should have waited a little longer because they kept going down. But we didn't know. So we just jumped in and we got like a 3.75, which is a really good rate compared to, current rates or whatever. But first time home buyers definitely understand that what you're currently in at, you can refinance later if rates go down. Just get in the door.
Okay.
Rent's not going down. It keeps going up.
Yeah, it is. It does keep going up. Somebody told me what they was paying for rent. I was like, what now? What?
15 easy.
Like what? Yeah. I'm paying rent. It was like $750, and it was $750 because of my own not signing the whole 12-month what is it called, lease again, right? So really, I was paying. If I had signed the lease, I would have been paying a lot less. I'm like, you paying $2,000 for rent? My eyeballs be going like this. Not real. For rent. Like, are you kidding me? But let's talk about the whole refinance thing. Because understanding what refinance is, right, is You have to do the numbers to make sure that it works out,
It has
right?
to make sense. Well, obviously the rates need to be less than what you are now, and then there has to be so much equity in the house too. I'm no lender, so I'm not gonna get off in the lending, but I will say that is an option.
Okay.
Yes.
So I guess my whole point is make sure that it makes sense.
Yes. Don't just refinance. Yes. You obviously don't want to refinance at a higher rate. It needs to make your payment. So I'll give you an example. So I think our rate when we bought was like 5-ish. And then, so when we refinanced at 3.75, it made our payment go down. Okay. Now we did have to pay closing costs, and essentially we started the loan over again. Mm-hmm. But we were okay with that because I'm like, that's several $100s a month. Mm-hmm. I'm good with that. You know what I mean? So yeah, you got to compare, you know what I'm saying, and see. But that is an option. So
let's jump into just real quick before we start wrapping things up. Mm-hmm. Because there's talk about, should you do a 15-year mortgage loan or a 30-year mortgage loan? And you can hear pros and cons of both. Now, I have my perspective on what an individual should do, but as a first-time home buyer, what would you tell an individual to do?
I think it just depends on their income situation. You know, if they can, because the 15-year, that payment's going to be a lot more, or it's going to be more than the 30-year. Mm-hmm. You can accomplish a similar goal in paying your loan off in 15 years by making extra payments. So that's what you should do.
Is there a fee though for paying it off early?
No, most loans don't have an early payment fee. Yeah, and if you make a payment, you just have to specify that you're making that payment towards the principal only. Otherwise, they'll apply it to principal and insurance. But at one point, it was the rule of thumb was like one extra payment a year may knock off half of
Mm-hmm. I know when I do, because I pay online and I may make an extra, whatever extra I can make, right? And it'll show you on a little meter what it's knocking off the principal. And I'm like, wow. It could be something as simple as an extra $20 or extra $30. It'll show exactly what it's taking down. I'm like,
that's a nice tool.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, wow. Huh. Yeah. Because when you hear extra, you may think you got to do an extra 100, extra 200. Now, obviously, if you have it, it's more beneficial,
right? So, yeah, you don't even have to do the whole payment. You can just, whatever amount is extra.
Yeah. It knocks significantly enough off the principal. Yes. And I love the little meter part. So, I want to share, because again, I was not buying a home, y'all. I was comfortable living in my apartment, okay? I was comfortable apartment living, and had been apartment living for a long time. And in this particular apartment, I had been there, 10 plus years, a really long time. And so at the time I had a dog, and I was walking him to the garbage can. And it was an older lady, and her window, she used to watch us, right? Going back and forth. And one day I just started talking to her in the window, because she was bedbound. I didn't know that until I started talking to her. And talking to this lady, I realized she had been in the apartment place that I lived for 45 years.
Wow.
4, 5. 4.
A very long time.
Let me clear my throat.
Your whole life.
Yeah. 4, 5, 45 years. And I'm listening like, did she say 45? I had to go to see when the apartment complex was developed, right? Because I'm like, you had to be here when they started. And that thing sat with me, and it sat with me, and I was like, how do you live somewhere for 45 years? And then that's when it hit me, Tamekia, very easily. You've been here well over 10. I started doing my homework.
That time be like, it go by quick.
I started doing my homework, and it was 2017. I said, I will be 40. I want to buy a home. And that is the small piece of the story that really lit something in me to be like, you know what? I don't want to be here another 5 years, 10 years. And I was very comfortable living where I was, right? Like when nobody just want a house hop or apartment hop. Nobody wants to do that, right?
Yeah, moving is not easy either.
No. So I was comfortable until I had that. And I think it was it was meant for me to have that discussion with her, right? To hear 45 years.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
wow.
Yeah.
I don't want to be this. I had a similar aha moment when I moved here because we rented as well, you know, moving from Dayton, moving here. And the time, I looked up and it was like 6 years. I said, and the property values had just went. And I looked back and I said, wow, if we would have got a house when we first moved here, we could have bought that house probably for like $130. Now those same houses are selling for $300,000.
Yep.
And I'm just like, wow. So don't let fear stagnate you. Like set that budget and then work your plan. If you don't have your 2 years of tax filings, that's okay. I mean, I've had people that literally they're like, I just got one. And I've been on my job a year. All right, that's fine. Next year, you know. And so we talk about building, you know, tips and things like that to help get their credit score up and things like that. A lot of people don't realize like utilization is so important. There was a time where I feel like cash was king, was like the thing or whatever. Now, no, credit is king.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's talk about that too, because I think when people hear that cash is king, and so here's how I process cash. Like I like to use cash when I am monitoring using my card, right? Meaning like I don't always want to whip out my card, my debit card, because I'm like, I need to know what's in this account, right? So for me to kind of help monitor what I spend, like I keep cash on me. But when it comes to like credit and debt, because you know people talk about, well, you don't want to build it, you don't want to have any debt, this is that and the other, blah 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 blah, and it's like, and it's I'm not gonna use any names, but there's some big name people who talk about cash is king and you don't want to have any debt. And truth of the matter is, there's nothing wrong with good debt.
Good debt, yes. There's good debt and then there's bad debt.
Yes.
So it's about being disciplined. So the way I look at it is if you're disciplined and you utilize your credit card, cash back credit cards, as if they're debit cards and you pay them off every month, then you're winning because you're getting cash back benefits. And then you're also building your credit at the same time.
Yeah. Keeping
your utilization under 30% of the limit is like the king. Like, I feel like my scores has always been a little like like they kind of just stayed at a certain point. Like, even though I felt like I'm paying stuff on time. Even one point I paid off all the credit cards. I was like, I'm done with them. And my score didn't do anything. And it wasn't until we took a trip to, we took a Disney cruise and they had like a promotion. If you get a Disney card, you get like $200. I was like, I'm going to do that. And so I could shop in a little, buy the kids a little something. And so I used the card on the whole trip. Now, mind you, at that point, I had paid off. I was like, I'm done with it. I had paid off this credit card that I just hated it. So, charged it on the trip. And then came back, paid it off or whatever. And I noticed my score jumped. I was like, on to something. So I started. So, long story short, it took me a while because it was something about credit card debt that just didn't sit right with my soul.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, it's taking time to get used to it. But what I typically try to do is use my card in place of my debit card. Understand my statement date, know what that is, understand my due date. Make sure that my balance is below 30% by the statement date, and then pay it off by the due date so I don't pay any interest ever. Yeah. And my score has skyrocketed over 800. It's been that way for the last few years.
Oh, wow.
So I always tell people, don't stop using your cards. You need that continue as you use it. It's continuing to build history, and you want that balance to show there on the statement date so that reports to the bureau, because that's like a snapshot of when so just having that discussion about the dates has been very important.
I'm glad you said that, because I can remember people talking about, they're going to cut their credit cards up. They're not going to use their credit cards. And it's like, no, like
don't pay interest, but use those cards.
You want to use it, like you said, the utilization, because it's important. Like, because if you're not using it, then you're not building any history.
Yes. And you can qualify with better scores. You can qualify for better loans. So instead of a FHA loan that has PMI, which most buyers, first time home buyers, that's just what they qualify for. But with higher scores, you can get conventional loan. after you paid the balance down 20%,
Mhm.
the PMI will drop off. So there's benefits to having that higher score. It's definitely a benefit.
Now, does it just drop off, or do you have to
Well,
request?
it's
Because
supposed to. You do need to request it. They don't do because they say it's supposed to drop off, but they don't. The lenders don't monitor.
I'm about to say because they've been telling me what I need to do because it just don't drop off.
You got to mail them a letter or something.
I got to do a whole.
That's a hot
I got to
mess.
get a whole nother appraisal. I got to do all this stuff. Yes, it just doesn't. Mine hasn't just dropped off.
I thought they ordered the appraisal for you. No,
I gotta do it and I gotta pay for it.
I wonder if depends on the lender.
Maybe because I was also researching
because when I did mine and it dropped off, I just had to let them know like they didn't do, and they did do an appraisal.
And I think it's different lenders because when I was researching it, different answers popped up. So I think it's based on the lender, and I was just like, I gotta go through all these steps.
Well, if you need a broker opinion, I can do that for you for free.
Well, okay, now, yeah.
Maybe they'll take that in lieu of a real appraisal because it's gonna pull. I mean,
okay,
similar data.
We need to talk because I'm like I need this to drop off.
I know that's right.
All right, so before we jump into our rapid growth fire questions, what was I gonna ask you? I was gonna ask you something. What was it? Let's jump into the rapid fire growth questions, and then maybe it'll come back to me. Okay. So share one of your favorite affirmations.
Favorite affirmations. I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me.
Love that. Next one is name a book or self-help.
Oh, that's a Bible verse. Is that considered an affirmation?
Yeah. Do you use it?
I do.
It's your affirmation. Okay. Yes.
I'll take
it. Name a book or a self-help tip that will help women wanting to buy a home.
Self-help tip. I'll probably, because I don't, okay. So, wow. I would say self-help tip, mental first. Just don't, I would say, use your intuition. Obviously put God first. And I say this probably more than anything is pray about it.
Yes.
Because, honestly, the whole journey to owning a home is a faith walk. There's a lot of anxiety. Well, I call it buyer's remorse, but it's one of those things where you're buying the biggest purchase of your life, most likely. And so there's a thought process that you second guess. Mm-hmm. You kind of second guess yourself, especially once you go under contract. It's like, oh God. And then you may continue to look, and then you're maybe I can find something a little better. Maybe this isn't the right side of town. So that's really the biggest thing that I think that I rely on the most is just praying and then letting God lead you. I know that sounds real churchy, but I mean, it's the truth.
No, I support it. I think you're right because, before we found the right one for me, we had looked at several. A couple of them I was like, but then there were a couple I was just like, this one is it, Stevena, this one is it. And then it was just like, yeah, no, you didn't get it. And I was just like, I did?
Right.
But, living in my home now, like where, that I did get, I was just like, oh, this one was meant for me, right? Because I feel like especially being a woman and first time home buyer, one of the things that is important is safe neighborhood, right? And so I just feel completely safe where I am. You know what I mean? And neighbors are really nice. And it's just, it meets
safe neighborhood. So that's
safety.
Yeah, that's important. And so I do get those questions a lot. Opinion. And so I'm very cautious about kind of like what neighborhoods, because what I may consider like not safe, other people are comfortable with. Maybe they grew up in. So I will say,
listen, if I gotta sleep with my eye open.
Now, I mean, if you're hearing gunshots, that's different. But I'm just saying, I've had situations where people were like, don't send me anything in this neighborhood because they have a lot of bad things to say about a certain neighborhood. And then,
but some of those neighborhoods, they was giving money for you to move. I can speak to Columbus only. Mm-hmm. Certain neighborhoods, they was giving you money to move in them neighborhoods because they were revitalizing. But go ahead.
Yeah, but then in the next day or week or whenever, I'll get someone else that's like, I want to live here. Like, I want to live here.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for me, I can't legally, I can't steer people, but for first time home buyers, I think it's a great idea, like you did, ride around the area, different times a day, pay attention to the energy you feel, like, because you want to, like you said, you want to feel safe where you're living. You want to feel a positive vibe where you live in, or feel like you can access the things you need. And that's different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's very important for first time home buyers, is to take the time to, check out the areas in different times of day, drive by.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was the bond working with you, I'm not going to lie. Because you did that. Like, some properties you be like, take that off the list. I don't drove by. It's a hot mess. I don't even want to see it.
I do remember, and listen, I moved in the wintertime and I still drove past the areas, and I just happened to catch like different neighbors out during the day and night, and I would ask them about the neighborhoods. But although I moved in the wintertime, I think it's also even more important if you're moving in spring or summer to also drive around and check those neighborhoods out.
And talk to the neighbors.
And talk to the neighbors. Talk to the neighbors.
Will tell you, they'll tell you a lot.
They will tell you everything.
Yes, they will. Some stuff you want to know.
By the time I got done, I knew who owned the home. I knew who were renters, and I knew who had a daycare.
Especially on the investment
side.
I
knew everything, and I was just like, "Oh, y'all are well informed." Okay,
yeah.
So
that's a huge tip. If you're gonna live there, even if you're not, and you're just buying it for investment purposes, because guess what, you may get a tenant that's a hot mess, and you need them out, and that neighbor's gonna be the one to tell you when stuff's going down, and if they doing things they shouldn't be out of your house. So protecting your assets. So.
Yes, I agree. Well, I want to say thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having
our conversation with Tamekia and just hanging out with me to talk about home ownership, because it's very important to me. It's important that we start changing the trajectory. It's important that women start buying. It's important that our community, people look like us, that we start buying homes, investing, and even
in homes. Partnering. If you don't, say a person is first time home buyer, maybe you don't have all the resources by yourself, but maybe you and your sister and your cousin, or generational living. I do want to bring that up. It may be a good option to do when you think about affordability and long term living.
I agree, because other cultures, you look at certain other demographics, you be like, all of y'all live there. But then when you look at it, it's
very
like,
well.
It'd be like,
sharing resources and helping one another. Yes, exactly.
It works. So yes, I support it. So, thank you for coming on. We are getting ready to close.
Thank you for having me.
I am your girl, Tamekia Armoon. Thank you for tuning in to Happy Hour Conversations with Tamekia. Stevena, thank you so much. We are out. Talk to you all later.
Bye.
Thank you for tapping in to Happy Hour Conversations with Tamekia and engaging with our sister friend tribe, where voice matters, laughing is medicine, and redefining her identity is essential. Be sure to follow us on IG at Happy Hour Conversations with Tamekia, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast. I am your girl, Tamekia, and I'll see you next week.